Amanda Carter never saw it coming. As a rising star in the world of live streaming, her life seemed perfect until one night, while broadcasting to thousands of viewers, everything changed. A shadow crept behind her, a figure watched from the darkness, and in an instant, her life would never be the same. Bryan Fields, a man obsessed with her every move, had been lurking in the shadows for months. And that night, his plan to make Amanda his own would unfold in the most terrifying way possible. Amanda Carter was living a dream that many could only imagine. At just 24, she had built a thriving career as a live streamer, her bubbly personality and knack for connecting with people making her an internet sensation. From her quaint, light-filled apartment in Greenfield, Amanda welcomed her growing audience into her world every evening, broadcasting live sessions filled with makeup tutorials, personal anecdotes, and candid Q&A sessions. Her viewers adored her. They laughed at her quirky jokes, admired her creative flair, and felt a genuine connection to her openness. Her apartment, often complimented by fans for its cozy charm, was a reflection of Amanda's personality: warm, inviting, and effortlessly stylish. Fairy lights framed her windows, and her desk, where she streamed, was neatly arranged with makeup products, a vase of fresh flowers, and a coffee cup that seemed perpetually full. This space was her stage, and every evening, Amanda shone under its gentle spotlight. But despite her outward glow, Amanda had begun to feel a creeping sense of unease. For the past several weeks, she had been receiving unsettling messages from an anonymous account. At first, they were innocuous, just strange comments that seemed out of place among the usual supportive messages. But over time, they grew more sinister. "I know where you live," one message read. "You'll see me soon," said another. Amanda tried to brush them off, telling herself they were the work of a bored troll seeking attention. After all, she had dealt with online negativity before, a small price to pay for the platform she loved so much. On the evening of October 15th, Amanda prepared for her live stream as usual. It was a cool autumn night, and she wore a cozy sweater, her hair pulled into a loose bun. She greeted her audience with her trademark cheerfulness, flashing a bright smile that masked her underlying unease. Thousands tuned in, as they always did, flooding the chat with questions, compliments, and emojis. Amanda dove into her usual routine, unboxing fan mail, trying on new makeup products, and chatting about her day. Yet something about that night felt different. Amanda's gaze occasionally darted to the window behind her, where the blinds were drawn. Her movements were a bit stiffer, her laughter slightly forced. Her audience, though entertained as ever, began to sense something was off. "You okay, Amanda?" One comment read. "You seem distracted." Amanda glanced at the screen, saw the concern, and quickly waved it off with a smile. "Just a little tired," she said, though no one could hear her reply. As the stream went on, Amanda felt a growing unease that she couldn't explain. Her cheerful persona began to waver, and she found herself glancing over her shoulder more often. At one point, she thought she saw something, a flicker of movement outside the window. Her heart raced, but she dismissed it as her imagination playing tricks on her. Her viewers, however, saw it too. The chat lit up with frantic messages. "Did you see that? Someone's behind you." Amanda's heart pounded as she read the comments, but she forced a laugh, telling herself and her audience that it was probably just the wind. She had no way of knowing that this night, which began like any other, would soon take a turn she would never forget. Amanda's live stream continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. What began as a lighthearted session now felt charged with tension. She tried to carry on as if everything was normal, continuing to unbox gifts and respond to her viewers, but her movements were no longer fluid and relaxed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened the next package, and her laughter had a nervous edge. The comments kept pouring in, many urging her to check the window behind her. For Amanda's loyal followers, the stream had taken on a surreal quality. A routine evening with their favorite creator now felt like the prelude to something far darker. Screenshots of the shadowy figure moving across Amanda's window spread rapidly across social media. Some viewers speculated it was a trick of the light or a prank Amanda was playing, but others weren't so sure. As Amanda read the increasingly panicked messages in the chat, her facade of calm began to crack. She turned her head toward the window, the blinds still swaying slightly from the earlier movement. The shadow was gone, and the street outside appeared empty. She hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with possibilities. Maybe it had been a branch brushing against the glass or a bird passing by. But deep down, she felt a gnawing dread. Just as she was about to address the chat, another sound broke through the quiet of her apartment. This time, it was a dull thud, like something falling in the next room. Amanda froze, her breath catching in her throat. Her eyes darted to the doorway leading to the hall, which now seemed ominously dark. She leaned closer to the screen, as if to reassure herself with the presence of her viewers, even though they were miles away. The chat exploded with messages. What was that? Amanda, call the police! Get out of there! She stared at the screen, her mind paralyzed by the cacophony of fear and confusion both within her and on the stream. For a moment, she considered ending the live broadcast and calling for help. But part of her hesitated, not wanting to overreact or scare her audience unnecessarily. Taking a deep breath, she decided to investigate. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, and walked out of the frame. The stream now showed only the empty chair and the warmly lit room behind it. Her viewers held their breath as they watched, waiting for her to return. Minutes ticked by, and the tension grew unbearable. In the silence, some swore they could hear faint sounds, creaks, whispers, or perhaps just their imagination fueled by the growing panic. Then Amanda reappeared, her face pale and her expression tense. It's nothing, she typed in the chat, her voice absent from the stream. Just something fell over. Don't worry. Her attempt to reassure her audience only partially succeeded. Many were still on edge, feeling that something wasn't right. But Amanda pressed on, trying to wrap up the stream quickly. She thanked her viewers for joining and promised to see them the next day. Just as she was about to end the broadcast, her screen glitched momentarily, and the chat erupted with messages of terror. Behind you, someone wrote. He's in the room. Amanda froze, her eyes wide as she glanced at her reflection in the darkened screen of her laptop. For a split second, there was a shape, a figure standing just a few feet behind her. And then, without warning, the stream went black. The following morning, Amanda's disappearance became the talk of Greenfield and the online world. Her live stream, which had abruptly ended the night before, left her viewers in shock and fear. Clips of the broadcast circulated rapidly on social media, with countless theories about what had happened. The haunting final seconds, where a shadowy figure appeared behind her before the screen went black, sent chills through everyone who watched. Amanda's family and friends were the first to notice that something was wrong. She wasn't answering her phone, and texts went unread. When her best friend Megan stopped by the apartment, she found the door locked and no sign of Amanda. Frantic, Megan called the police, who quickly launched an investigation. When officers entered Amanda's apartment, it was eerily quiet. Nothing seemed obviously out of place at first glance. Her laptop was still on the desk, the fairy lights around her window were glowing softly, and her coffee cup remained half full. But Amanda was gone. There were no immediate signs of a struggle, no broken furniture or overturned objects. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The investigators turned their attention to Amanda's live stream, which they now considered crucial evidence. They combed through the footage, focusing on the moments when viewers had reported seeing movement in the background. The shadow by the window was undeniable, as was the figure that briefly appeared behind her. Audio specialists enhanced the sound from the stream, uncovering faint but unsettling noises, soft creaks and distant whispers. It became clear that someone had been inside Amanda's apartment while she was broadcasting. Complicating matters further, they discovered a chilling clue among the fan mail Amanda had opened during the stream. One of the packages contained an unsigned letter with no return address. The message, written in blocky, uneven handwriting, read, "I'm closer than you think." Amanda had read it aloud, laughing nervously before discarding it. Now, the note took on a far more sinister meaning. As the police pieced together the timeline, they discovered a troubling detail. A neighbor had reported hearing strange noises from Amanda's apartment around 10 p.m., including a loud thud and muffled sounds, but no one had investigated at the time. Surveillance footage from the apartment complex showed nothing unusual, no one entering or leaving her unit during the hours in question. It was as if the perpetrator had vanished along with Amanda. Online, her disappearance fueled a frenzy of speculation. Some believed it was an elaborate hoax, a publicity stunt orchestrated by Amanda to gain more followers. Others insisted she had been kidnapped and that her stalker was to blame. The police, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to verify leads, focusing on the threatening messages Amanda had received in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. As the hours stretched into a day, the urgency of finding Amanda grew. A search of the surrounding area turned up no clues, but detectives were certain of one thing. Whoever had taken Amanda had been planning this for some time. The live stream had served as a terrifying stage for the crime, watched in real time by thousands of unsuspecting viewers. Amanda's fans, now devastated, organized online campaigns to raise awareness about her disappearance. Hashtags like Find Amanda and Bring Her Home trended worldwide. The community that had once celebrated her vibrant personality now united in fear and hope, desperate for any sign that she was still alive. Yet, as night fell again, Amanda's whereabouts remained a mystery. The unease that had permeated her final broadcast now hung over everyone who had been a part of her world. Somewhere, in the quiet corners of Greenfield, someone knew the truth. But they were staying silent. As the investigation into Amanda's disappearance deepened, the police uncovered more disturbing details about her online presence. Digging through her social media accounts and emails, they found a pattern of obsessive behavior from one individual in particular. This person, identified as Bryan Fields, had been leaving Amanda increasingly erratic comments for months. His messages ranged from innocuous compliments to outright disturbing threats. "I'm always watching." One of his messages read, "You can't hide from me," said another. Bryan was no stranger to law enforcement. Just a year prior, he had been arrested for stalking another online influencer, though his sentence had been brief. The police began to piece together his movements in the weeks leading up to Amanda's disappearance, suspecting that he had escalated his fixation on her into something far more dangerous. As detectives tracked Bryan, they learned he had recently checked into a small, run-down motel on the outskirts of Greenfield. A search of the room revealed items that sent chills down the spines of investigators. Among his belongings were a collection of photos of Amanda, taken without her knowledge, some from close enough to suggest he had been watching her in person. They also found her phone, a necklace she was known to wear, and a wig styled to resemble her hair. Bryan, however, was gone. Motel staff recalled seeing him leave in the early hours of the morning, carrying a large duffel bag. Surveillance footage from the property showed him walking toward the woods behind the motel, but the trail went cold. Meanwhile, another chilling discovery added urgency to the case. A jogger had stumbled upon a shallow grave in a wooded area not far from Amanda's apartment. The grave appeared to have been hastily dug, but was empty, as though the person who started it had abandoned their plan. Forensic teams scoured the site, finding traces of dirt consistent with the type found near Amanda's apartment building. Investigators now feared that whoever had taken her had intended to kill her, but had been interrupted. Desperate for leads, police issued a public plea for anyone with information to come forward. Tips began flooding in, though many led nowhere. Then, one tip provided a breakthrough. A local delivery driver reported seeing a man matching Bryan's description entering an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. This building, once a thriving factory, had been empty for years and was now a haven for illicit activity. SWAT teams were dispatched to the warehouse immediately. Inside, they found evidence of a makeshift living space, discarded food wrappers, a mattress, and more of Amanda's belongings. But the most horrifying discovery was a series of notes scrawled on the walls in Bryan's handwriting. They detailed his obsession with Amanda, describing her as his destiny and hinting at plans to make her his forever. Though Bryan himself was nowhere to be found, investigators were now certain they were closing in. Every new piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of a man spiraling into dangerous delusion, and they feared what he might do if they didn't find him, and Amanda soon. The clock was ticking, and the world watched anxiously as the search for Amanda reached a fever pitch. 2 days after Amanda's disappearance, just as hope began to waver, her YouTube channel unexpectedly went live. The stream appeared blank at first, just a black screen with faint static sounds in the background. Thousands of her followers received notifications and rushed to watch, their hearts racing with anticipation and fear. What they saw was nothing short of chilling. For the first few minutes, the screen remained dark, but the faint sound of irregular breathing could be heard. The breathing was shallow and panicked, occasionally punctuated by muffled sobs. Then, a dim light flickered, revealing an unsettling scene. The camera appeared to be positioned in a dark room, showing a cluttered space littered with tools and debris. In the corner of the frame, barely visible, was a figure. Amanda was there, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Her hair was disheveled, and she appeared pale and weak. She was alive, but the fear in her expression spoke volumes. As the camera adjusted to the dim light, viewers could see the space more clearly. A decrepit room with peeling paint, exposed pipes, and a single broken window. It was a hauntingly quiet scene, save for Amanda's strained breathing and the occasional creak of floorboards. The live chat erupted in panic. Thousands of viewers flooded the screen with messages begging for someone to call the police, share the location, or do anything to help. The stream lasted only 10 minutes before abruptly cutting off, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Detectives were immediately notified and worked to trace the stream's source. Using advanced digital tracking, they pinpointed the signal to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the same one investigators had searched just a day earlier. This time, they were certain Amanda was there. A SWAT team was deployed to the location within the hour. They approached cautiously, knowing Bryan Fields was dangerous and possibly armed. Inside the warehouse, the scene was even more unsettling than what had been visible on the stream. The room from the video was real, filled with the same disturbing clutter and debris. Amanda's gag and bindings lay discarded on the floor, but she was nowhere to be seen. Then, muffled cries echoed from a nearby storage closet. Officers rushed to open it, finding Amanda curled in the corner, trembling but alive. Tears streamed down her face as she was gently helped out of the confined space. She had been held captive for nearly 48 hours, enduring the terror of not knowing what would happen next. Bryan, however, was not in the warehouse. He had fled moments before the SWAT team arrived, leaving behind his notes, tools, and the terrifying evidence of his plans. But his escape was short-lived. A police perimeter had been established around the area, and Bryan was caught attempting to slip through the woods. He was apprehended without incident, his expression eerily calm as officers led him away. The ordeal left Amanda shaken but alive. Her bravery during those harrowing hours, combined with the swift actions of law enforcement, had saved her life. The live stream that had once been a source of joy for Amanda and her followers had turned into a horrifying spectacle, but it also played a key role in her rescue. Amanda's recovery was slow. She chose not to return to live streaming, instead dedicating her energy to advocating for online safety and stalking prevention. Her story became a rallying cry for stronger protections for creators and a sobering reminder of the dark side of internet fame. As for Bryan, he was charged with kidnapping, stalking, and attempted murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Amanda's resilience and the collective effort to save her ensured that justice was served, but the scars of that night would remain with her forever. The final moments of her ordeal, broadcast to the world, served as both a haunting reminder and a call to action. For Amanda and her followers, it was a lesson in vigilance, courage, and the power of a community united in the face of unimaginable darkness.